A mother this morning is probably, or possibly, clutching her chest or clutching the picture of her 16-year-old son who was killed recently. Two young women lives were snuffed out because of an alleged link to domestic abuse. A playwright, loved by many, one of the titles we've been seeing, one of the news stories indicated, everybody loves Raymond, stabbed 8 times. Another young man who, based on police reports, would have drifted on the side of lawlessness, killed in South Trinidad. And the list goes on and on. So why did I give this spectrum for you? Because it doesn't matter what's your ethnic background, it doesn't matter where you came from, status quo, all of that. It doesn't really matter when it comes to crime. Right? It has no respect for that. So how do we address this complex situation, which we call crime or criminal activity? Yeah. Rash Shorty I said it best years ago. And many of us are being haunted by that reality. Because one of the main, if not the main factor that we need to address is that we pushed the creator out, and now many of us have to put our hands on our lips because many of us would have been guilty of doing that. Joining me on this episode of Cloud 9 is my good friend, Pastor Clive Dottin. We are at his home today. We are in Maraval to talk about crime in Trinidad and Tobago. T&T is crying indeed. And Pastor Dottin, thank you for having us.
It's my privilege, always my privilege to appear in your program.
Today,
what a time.
What a time. And you know, it was necessary for me to start like that because I want people to understand this thing called crime. And you know, we like to look at crime from one area, this very myopic view of crime, but we cannot look at anything in from a myopic perspective. In looking at what's happening in the last, let's say, few days, and my last count would have been 9 or 10. I could be off, maybe more. What are your thoughts at this time, Pastor Dottin?
Well, I want to be very honest with you. You started with the song by Rash Shorty, Pushing the Creator Out. So we are doing that. You would see the comments on social media, on mainstream media, on print media. People show very little regard for God and things spiritual. I mean, God, however you call him, whether it's in the Christian context, the Hindu context, the Islamic context, the Baha'i context, so that we seem to be getting more emboldened with a kind of militant evil in the society. And I'm not just talking about the murder rate and the crime and the violence. As you come to the crime and violence, we're thinking of children and teenagers. And of course, an increasing number of women being not just murdered, but brutally executed, ducted, either tying, blocking them from speaking, or crying out, or their hands being tied behind their backs, and the case in Mafikin Mayaro with the security guard. And again, I want to advise, I got in trouble for saying it the first time after the elaborate killings. And we have another situation, Sheldon, where I'm going to offend some more people. But I think groups that represent men and fathers, we have got to look at this thing very, very, very seriously and not be in a state of denial. When women and children are being executed and teenagers, broad daylight. And I sent a post on Facebook in terms of the latest murder, which has attracted quite a lot of attention. Raymond. Everybody loves Raymond. Yes. And what I posted was, Trinidad and Tobago, we lost a golden moment when the young mother, the female state witness, was gunned down, coming from a graduation. And her son was clutching her cold body on the road. This was broad daylight too. after graduation. And I feel very touched by that because I was in a graduation in that same community in Fable Government School, Village Government School, for their graduation. So that I'm saying the country lost the moment to rise up. You see, there comes a time and there comes a tide in the affairs of men, in the affairs of nations, where you have to take a serious stand. And to my mind, when that female sitting witness was gunned down, we had what is called a kind of muted response. 2 days, and after that, it's not even a 9 days wonder anymore, it's a 2 days wonder. And my concern with the dramatist, playwright, director, etc., is that we have to be careful, and I have to be careful myself, not to deepen the polarization that is afflicting our country and almost paralyzing it in the fight against crime. The polarization based on race and class and religion, as you mentioned, status just now. God knows what is going to happen as local government elections, they're approaching, and next year when you have national elections. When I listen to the conversation on the platform, it is filled with anger, it is filled with a kind of hostility, almost as if the hostility is irreversible. In a long time you say, well, the fellows go attack each other, pick on and thing, in the parliament, on the platform, but after that they go have a nice time hugging up each other. I think we're about to lose that too, because to my mind, the hostility seems to be indelible. For example, I'm wondering if at all we could have the leader of the opposition and the Prime Minister appearing in a press conference together, not to score points, but to just sympathize with the population. I believe, and Clive Nunes was the one who first gave me that idea some years ago, if both of them could hold a press conference, all right? I don't know how functional the IRO is right now, but I'm saying if both of them could hold a press conference and address the nation and say, listen, we may have a slightly different philosophy, but we have a concern for the country. We are patriots. We want the society to unite. Yes, we wanted to vote for our specific party, but we put in the nation first. We want to express empathy to all those who are hurting. And I want to say this. I mean, you want to have some, what I call a philosophical congruence. And that is, whether a person is gay or straight is not the issue right now, The issue is when a person is brutally murdered, we have to shed a tear. We have to ask that the criminal be brought to justice, whether it's the teenager in Aruka or whether it's the security guard who was dumped in Mafican Forest. Without knowing details, we have to express concern, and I want to express concern to all the families, not just the past 72 hours, but for the past year and years, children, women, young men in the prime of their lives. And I want to say, in reference to a particular popular radio program this morning, I am getting the impression we give a response based on who it is, and that's a dangerous road for the society. All right? And when we talk class, we talk in color too. I'm saying it's a dangerous road. We have to certainly with religious leaders, we're not always wise. Sometimes we are very unwise with our comments. But I'm saying now is the time for us to unite and engage in the prevention program, hold on to a young person. And the drugs are invading our primary school, the marijuana, cookies. And by the way, Sheldon, as we touch on marijuana there, it will be interesting for those who are in the pro-marijuana lobby, all right, to check and see in the gangs we have, because this year we have over 2,500 gang members. I feel it's double that, to be frank with you. But it's interesting to know how many of those young people, their brains, all right, their lungs, their hearts, have been savaged by the marijuana thing, because, as was said before, the decriminalizing is just a step away from the legalizing. And that is where the society is going. In fact, where the world is going, unless you take certain postmodern measures like legalizing gay marriage, that kind of thing, legalizing abortion, legalizing drugs across the board, unless you do that, international aid becomes a challenge. I am telling you, international aid becomes a challenge. So that I am looking at the total perspective, the moral fabric of the nation. And I'm saying we cannot fight crime without looking at the moral fabric and the traditional family as God designed it.
I want to continue from the moral fabric.
Yes.
because that fabric has been torn to shreds, over the
I
last
agree,
few
I agree
years.
with you.
And I also want to go back to the point of the Prime Minister and the opposition leader coming together. I had a conversation with, I wouldn't say with whom, but with someone who's very, on the executive of the UNC. And in our conversation, I was saying to the individual that in one of the many Monday night forums that they have, what would be so interesting and even different, and I'm hoping that they're listening, because I'm going somewhere with this, that just for one Monday night forum, come off the podium, get a regular chair, sit amongst those who are in attendance, and just throw out the question to everyone, how are you doing? How's everything in your community? What's happening at your home? Talk to me. And I can guarantee you will get to hear the real concerns people have.
What I'm seeing here, and I would refer to two names on a particular radio station, Dale and Tony. They're talking about the two major parties almost having a kind of dinosauric posturing. And right close on the heels of that discussion, Sheldon, was the issue of the amount of parties that are being formed by young people. All right? Nikolai, you have Michaela Pandey, and you have other parties, the person's not so young, but they're relatively young on the scene. And there's been a whole discussion in the society about constitution reform, meaningful constitution reform, you know what I mean, campaign finance reform. I was in the Senate about 3-4 years ago, and we were looking at the issue, all right, of after the procurement legislation, which took a hell of a long time, you know, to be finally approved. And right after that would come campaign finance reform. But what I'm seeing, I have other young people in UWI tell me we're going to start a political party. And I wonder if what we could call the emerging proliferation of parties led by young people is because they feel the two major parties have no room for them and no space for them. And perhaps supporters will go along with that kind of thinking. So that we have to create space for young people if we want to fight crime where we have never created before. I had an experience with a politician, and I wouldn't say which party, but he was telling me even to get in, you know, at a lower level, he was accused of not being part of the area where he was born, all because apparently some of the cliques within these two parties do not want to open it to anybody they feel they cannot control. Now, for young people, they're not going to stand for that. They're not going to stand for that. And when we talk about the young people and creating a comfort zone for them and giving them room to flex their academic muscles and flex their creativity and make a difference, we have got to be genuine about that. I am not sure the average youth on the street or in UWI, UTT or USC, in COSTAT, whatever, is the average youth, I'm not sure they are convinced that we mean well for them and we will sacrifice for them. And when you move away from that elite group and you come to the boys in the street who will tell, put on your guns, you know, that has become almost a meaningless mantra. No, put on your guns, you know, and come out of that trade. I could tell you about 15 areas in Trinidad right now where the drug dealers, like the Prime Minister, he's running a tight shop. He has a structure, he has his own cabinet. He is compromising a lot of young ladies, particularly who are informers, who sometimes play the role of security, who are sexual tools. And when I talk about sexual tools, I'm not talking just about the heterosexual community alone, because you have an increasing, you know what I mean, invading of space by the other group. So that I am saying, let's be genuine. And I want to repeat that I believe it would make for political maturity and future development. Sheldon, if the youth, especially the youth and folks in the society could see Mrs. Kamala Prasad-Bissessar and Dr. Rowley side by side, and anybody else they choose to invite, but not for the case of saying, we did better than you, or you did worse than us. All right, because of you, we have the challenges and that kind of thing. just for about an hour, all right, with all the country and the world watching on, saying there are areas we could cooperate on. There are meetings we must have. There's a kind of message we have to send to the young people, and we must be genuine about it. If we lose the next election, we won't be bitter. We'll be there for the nation. Unless we have this kind of political maturity, and it must extend to the business section, it must extend even to religion, because I think we are part of the whole divide, and the polarization is not just ethnicity, race, it's about religion too. And unless we could say, you keep in Sunday, I keep in Saturday, the Muslim guy on Friday, we have enough reason to make a difference, all right, and to push the country in a different direction.
Do you think we're looking at a country which, this is my opinion, where we are almost 60 years young? And I don't want to say 60 years old, because in many ways we are still very immature as a country.
Sure.
We have not grown. And over those 60 years, a lot of wounds would have been inflicted on the people from different parties in different ways. So you mentioned them both coming together. That's great. But part of that coming together has to do with a healing process.
Yes.
Do you think that it will be an uphill battle for people to heal from some of the wounds, these very deep wounds that either party may have caused over the years? Because wanting to sit down and speak to the people, but how much of that will actually be internalized and accepted based on how the public sees these two individuals right now?
It's going to be difficult, but I believe the community must understand, once to every man and nation, the song says, comes the moment to decide, It's once. And we have approached that moment. We have no choice. There's no tomorrow in this whole thing,
Right.
I'm saying we have no choice than to engage in a systematic, authentic process of healing. Even though we might vote, we're not voting for you, you're not voting for me. But to my mind, this is where we have to go. And the communities must come together and demand this. And we in religion, evangelicals, Adventists, Hindu, Muslim. Shalom, I must tell you, you're a religious leader, I'm a religious leader. You're much younger than I am. But it bothers me, on this from the Christian perspective now, when we have to have a national parade, a national march, we cannot seem to understand. We have to engage in the non-Christian community. If it's just for dialogue. I've been telling my church, we are a very evangelistic church too. I have to tell them the only time people must see us cannot be when we are about to engage in an evangelistic drive.
And last, I was watching, and I have to give credit where credit is due to where I heard this, and it really was interesting. It's a pastor from the U.S. called, I think, is Keon Henderson, young pastor, young guy. And he had a sermon entitled Out of Pocket. And along the way, he made reference to the double-edged sword, right, of the word. And he says what people don't understand is that double-edged sword represents double-edged mouth. It comes out of the mouth of God, and then when we speak, our mouth too becomes a sword. The problem is in religion, I realize and listen to that, is that sometimes we use our mouth and cut up the wrong people. And we use what we say to cut up this person's religion, or cut up. Now, it may not be our intention directly, but as you say, we have not, and many of us have not discerned, okay, I'm cutting up the enemy's camp here. And by doing that, I have to show love even to everyone to understand what God is trying to do. Do you think as religious bodies, and we speak evangelical since you made that point,
yes,
do you think that we have lost our way in terms of understanding the power that we have when we speak?
Exactly.
And what we're supposed to do? Because there's I can't go in details right now, but there are some things in a very short walk that I have seen where the church is concerned that's very frightening. Very frightening.
Well, we practice discrimination in a big way, So the church has to deal with the issue of discrimination. You cannot fight crime until we deal with core issues what is the DNA of the political and social and religious fabric. And discrimination is a big thing. Prejudice is a big thing. And
in the church.
Yes.
Right.
And we have got to look at that. And when it comes to relating to others, that's even a bigger thing. I was told recently by a certain very heavy denomination, all right, that I have to be careful because they have invited me for the past 30 years to deal with a particular group, and they have an institution, and I wouldn't want to mention the institution. But suddenly, I've been told, remember, it is owned by denomination X. After I've given my blood, sweat, and tears for about 30 years, assisting them, and it has not been an issue. Part of the problem is we always feel we have to evangelize, you know what I mean? And I feel what has happened with prayer being kept out of this public space, the schools in America, part of that is that we have created a monster, We have helped to create a monster. We have played it in the hands of those who are engaging in militant evil, hostile evil. Because when we get up there, we get on like there's only one religion. If you're in a public place, it's not an Adventist school or a Baptist school or a Hindu school, you get in a school that is owned by the state. So all the religions are there, essentially. Right. All right. When you go and confront these folks, you have to realize not your church members around there are other people there, and they should share this space with you. And to my mind, in this plural society, sharing space has not dawned upon a lot of religious leaders.
Well, this is the frightening part of this, though, is that, and I know we're treading on some real dangerous ice here, but I could swim. Organizational. The church as an organizations rather, to me it is destroying what I would consider the faith. It is affecting the foundation of faith, because people are more concerned about what the organization says over what God says. And it's frightening for me because we're seeing a nation that's in peril. And the answer is really through God and through what God says. Why can't, as men and women and leaders who's supposed to know, why can't we get it right? We're seeing it every day.
I don't think we fully understand. Perhaps some of us have masters and PhDs, but we don't really understand God. There's no Godology. That's a serious thing. And I thought I should mention that. And then to my mind, there's a larger issue looming on the horizon, so that I'm dealing with some cases right now in the gang culture, where there's heterosexuality and homosexuality and incest and guns and crime and prostitution. So that it's a kind of mosaic emerging that I'm not even sure the country is aware of. Now, and what is happening, the corrupt are being protected from the just, but the just are not protected. So that is something we have to watch at. And therefore, I am not even sure some of us in religion understand the depth. You know what I mean?
It seems to me that it seems like there's more order in what they do than what we do.
Yes, and we don't want to learn from them in terms of the strategies, but I have realized you have to learn from anyone.
No, but because then, and again, I was at Pastor Calme's church last week, Thursday, and then his plumber gave a short exhortation. Yes. She made the point, she says, 40 plus wanted to kill Paul. And she made a comment, she says, I want us to be organized like them. Because she said they had a cause, a purpose, they were driven by it, and they wanted to. And she made the same point she made. Not that she agreed what they're doing, but there was an order, and there was a passion, and they were determined to get this done.
You have had a Pentecostal pastor, California there, and to my mind, he demonstrates the point. One of the issues for us in religion is that we think we could minimize the amount of time we spend in the community with those who wish to see change, and maximize the time with what I call pulpitarian transformation. That's where you're shooting from the pulpit, and that is supposed to change. Go to God, have the Holy Spirit, and we use the Greek words, the dunamis and the exousia and all that kind of thing. But there is no substitute, not even preaching, when it comes to spending quality time with young people in the ghetto, in the schools. To my mind, we have to get in those schools. I almost want to say invade the schools But until we do some of these things and spend quality time, and because, by the way, you know, I want the nation to know, one group we cannot fool happens to be young people. Young people see right through us. They know where our heart is, and we must not feel we're getting away with this superficiality. I don't mind, you know, leaders talking about kicks in Parliament, but I want to hear a backup in terms of, are we going to make a serious drive for all inclusiveness, not affect now, but in the functioning of the country, in the sharing of the wealth of the country? Do we have the courage to deal with that? Do we have the courage to talk about fair play and best practice? And until we hug these young people and convince them that we love them and we are willing to sacrifice for them, because, as you know, you always have deficit budgets, so that we who talk about morality and integrity, we have to understand that we have to move forward in terms of sacrificing for our young people. And if we don't touch that group there and make them know that we want to fight for them and sacrifice our lives to them, that crime will continue to move up.
Speaking of young people, and I want to just kind of go back to the point of Nikolai and Michaela.
Yes.
And because they are young people who, as you rightly said, you can't fool them. They see right through. So some of them, many of them are rising up now. Some are taking the position like Nikolai and Michaela. Others are doing, you know, other things in their sphere of experience, as they say. But do you think that our leaders are truly ready to embrace the ideologies, or, you know, what they are bringing to the table?
I don't want to pontificate, but I don't believe so. And what I see is a kind of exclusiveness within some of these groups. You know, we had a change once. I remember I had an experience I want to raise with you before we close off. And that experience was, there was a change in government. And I was asked to appear on a certain program. And the night before, I was called by the floor manager. And I say floor manager, that particular television station, warning me. Remember, you're no longer on the Police Service Commission. Remember, you're no longer in this. So be very careful. So I want to say, but if you, because when the other group was in charge, I was applauded. You understand? Now you're in charge. You almost want to tell me that I mustn't say certain things, because that's where the floor manager is coming from. She was a tool of the party in power and suggesting to me I mustn't say certain things, you know. And I told her, well, it's best you keep your program. You know, what does the song say? Take your steel beam and go. Keep your program and go. Because I must tell I was offended by that, because it appears to me that we do not wish. I don't think the politics is in forward gear, you know. I think the politics in the country is in reverse gear. That's why we're finding it so difficult to manage this crime problem, because there's the absence of the creativity in the thing. Because if you believe somebody is genuine, then you would appreciate when they criticize you, because you could learn from that once it's constructively done and not disrespectful. You could learn from that and you could move on. For example, I'm saying to all of us here today that if we want to start in a meaningful way dealing with young people in the ghetto and some of these tough areas, look at groups like Serve All. Look at what they are doing. Do we have to reinvent the wheel to invent something new, or support the programs that have a proven track record and the last decade has ministered to hundreds and thousands of people in areas like Beacom, etc.? If we give them the support, we don't have to reinvent the wheel and paint over the agriculture bus and call it another name. You know what I mean? Use that money to invest in some more young people. And I'm saying right now, I'm making a strong appeal that the various groups come together and look at those who are marginalized in the society, those in the periphery, and channel some resources there. And don't affirm the gimme thing, you know, so you get your RP or 10 days based on the party card you have, and the leaders of the country and the leaders of the parties must think beyond that. Okay, let's be genuine, let's be compassionate, let's be altruistic as we move forward to save the country from a deepening crisis.
And the media has a major responsibility in that, because the media needs to understand, we need to understand that we are the eyes of the soul of the people. And I say that strongly because I really want to congratulate those media houses that would have highlighted what took place in the Betham during the SCA. A lot of success, a lot of great things.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
And they highlighted that you've had instances whereby great things are happening in these areas, and sometimes you don't hear nothing about it at all. So for those who are doing it, congratulations. But there are those who are hell-bent on just highlighting the negative as a selling point for ratings. Again, but what are you selling? Are you selling the heart of the people, or are you selling out the people? Which is it? And the media has been a very even. Again, I might get some blows for this, but on social media, I see seasoned journalists getting caught up in this same bitter discourse about this party and that party and
this race and that race.
I'm like, you're serious? If you all forgot what this...
And some Calypsonians aren't growing at all, huh? Some Calypsonian is reverse geared to wherever. And I mean, I could take on the reaction to this, you know, but come to the C exam. I know our Minister of Education must go to the school where you had the number 1 child and number 2. But I'm saying, that same day, you have to spend all the time, that same day you could go to a school and wouldn't have number 500 or number 1,000, you know what I mean? And I feel our public officials, both government and opposition, could find themselves in some of these schools because there's some children who
you don't have to spend whole day.
No.
It was, and they said it was grant and
bring all the cameras.
Which is fine.
And bring all the cameras, you know. No.
Our max.
Share. SHRE. Share. Let's have a sense of balance with this, you know what I mean?
Let's switch our conversation now to the gang warfare.
Yes.
Zeroing on that. And of course you have all of these, I don't want to say theories, allegations, but we know there's some facts to it of the alleged link now to the issue of immigration and migrants and the whole Venezuelans here. I shouldn't say Venezuelans, South Americans, because
you know,
not just one, etc. How much is that a vital factor in either the increase in gang warfare or the possible increase in gang warfare? I
would say that there is an element of truth in that. My concern is like with how people are trying to manipulate the Raymond Chukong murder, all right? Almost you have no other murders in the country, and putting a twist in it that I find is very dangerous. You know, people are not homophobic, but there's heterophobic too. And I want to throw in that word today in the national conversation. We have had, I mean, the issue of when people, fishermen in the southern area are held, all right, are kidnapped. So we have had that situation for a good while. Now we have an increase of persons, and we have a increase of folks, negative folks involved in gangs and drug importation. Pedernales in Venezuela has been a great transit point for us. Let's be quite frank, that's not yesterday's story, that's way back when. So that what is happening in Trinidad, however, is that the turfs have shrunk, but the pushers have multiplied. So you know what you have there? It is easy. It's a borderline situation, you know. That may be borderline, not an easy one. So what you have is that sometimes fellas are crossing the borderline and not even sure where the borderline is. Because, and then you have the external foreign element who are adding to the number of people who are available for business, drug business, gun business. And I want to say this, and it's not said enough even on political platforms. If, all right, once you have the drugs coming in, you're going to have the guns coming in. There can be no drug trade without the gun trade. Because the protection element and the profit element are two of the major pivotal factors in this thing. So that we have to look at that. And I am not even sure we're protecting our schools. You have drugs flowing in some of our schools. It's a crazy thing. And people are in a state of denial. I've even had education officials talking like, if you're not aware of what is taking place, there are guys who are missing school and only turn up for when they have to collect the money from those who owe them. And there are fathers who are planting their kids. And let me say this, I heard that joint select committee there, and some of them don't have a clue what they're talking about. I want to say this, and I want to say it loud and clear, and I don't want to be misunderstood either. One of the greatest strategies of drug dealers in this country is putting their relatives, using their relatives to carry on the trade and to mentor to the parents and drug dealers, using young people in the schools, mentoring them in a life of drug distribution and ultimately in a life of crime and violence. That is a serious business here. That is not being an alarmist, and that has got to be addressed.
Is this something that you would have brought up in the past with relevant
Yeah,
authorities?
I have dealt with that.
Has been very
But you see, what happens is fellows just take a little note sometimes, and all right, and I think we're still in a state of denial to the extent of what is going on here. And I want to mention this. Anytime you appoint an aggressive commissioner of police and the gangsters are clear that he means well, and I believe Gary Griffith means extremely well, you're going to have two things. You're going to have the country now in reverse gear thinking, we have a man who could deal with the problem. That doesn't include us. So you create a Lone Ranger syndrome. All right, that's one. And the other thing is the criminals will try to prove the point. The murder rate will go up anyhow. We will ensure, all right, that if he's coming at us, we will come at him first.
I think we forget that it is a collective responsibility.
It's all of us.
All of us.
If we keep this, this issue of the star approach, we're going to have a problem, all right? And he needs all the help he can get. I believe his heart is in the right place, but he's facing a fractured society and a scoring points political culture. And that is deeper than we think, and the impact of it, the consequences of that kind of thinking is deeper.
The whole issue of our borders being porous, all of that is nothing new, as you mentioned as well. About
No, it is nothing
trade
new.
going back how many decades, as the case may be. And that being said, in looking at the registration process we had for the South Americans and so forth, and everything that happened during that window, do you honestly believe that enough thought was put into it before it was executed?
No, I don't think so. I don't.
And this has
think
nothing
so.
against with being against what was done, because I made the point before, and I addressed the Commander Gavin here as well on the show already, that this was an opportunity where God was going to look to see if he would react or respond. If he respond with love or react in our flesh and just be, So that issue is not pushing people away, but in terms of planning,
The mechanisms
and
in
the
place.
mechanisms, was that done properly?
No, I don't think we, and it was difficult to have 100%
No, nobody asked
spin on it,
for perfect. Yeah.
But I'm saying it was a problem. And may I tell you this, and I want to shift the conversation
Sure.
to another dimension, and that is we still have too many Trinidadians exploiting these people. We have a lot of good-hearted people. When the Cubans were here, I had experience with that firsthand, where a particular farmer was exploiting these folks and making them work very hard because they have a tremendous work ethic, perhaps a better work ethic than we as Trinidadians have, and that poses another issue. And I saw exploitation in a big way. I see the continuing exploitation, even before this huge influx of people. You have people even in security who are bringing in, helping to protect this prostitution flesh trade. And I heard a guy say, we black men have a way of liking the high-colored flesh, female flesh. And,
We had that conversation, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that is just, and he was just being real about it. And that has its own sociological, ground, imposition taking place there. And the dynamics are serious there, even from men leaving their wives, and going over to these individuals, and they're thrown a caught in the middle of this crossfire. So therefore, I'm not sure we read all the sociological implications and the psychological implications too, but they are here. I compliment the churches and the people on the ground who are opening their homes to them. We had a meeting here, this same office here on Saturday, Mission Board, and we heard endless stories of people accommodating them, giving them their land, and treating them properly. Right. If we are servants of God, we have to treat people properly and don't use their crisis to exploit and manipulate, as it's happening in some cases.
The marriage between state and church, it is a marriage that has been rocky, I want to say, for centuries. I know we've had, instances in the past where various men and women of God would have worked directly with various governments in the past, whether it be on state boards, whether it be as part of government, as the case may be. How do we know, and this goes back to one of our earlier points, how do we now find ways and means to more or less make that marriage, plan that marriage on a very firm soil? What do we need to do? Because it's something that we tend to avoid sometimes, either side.
Yes.
How do we maintain or actually strengthen that marriage between state and church?
And you do have a homogeneous religious society where everybody's Christian, everybody Hindu, so that you have to have constructive engagement. And putting it, I'm the Secretary General of CALA, Caribbean Religious Liberty Association, and we have seen the need for greater, dialogue. The first thing is dialogue. Great, if you shut down dialogue, you have a problem. And if you refuse to engage in dialogue, you also have a problem. So to my mind, there's need, even right now, so IRO, Caribbean Council of Churches, or all the groups, ASJA, or all the groups you have, the Masaba, all right? I would say come together in an unprecedented fashion and engage, other stakeholders, engage the government, engage the opposition. I say government and opposition because the churches have tended to make a blunder over the years. So you engage those in power when they're in power, and you leave out the other group who is not in power. And that creates, to my mind, a greater level of hostility, and it kind of neutralizes what you genuinely want to accomplish in terms of saving the youth and the families. So I say constructive engagement. I think Daniel is a fantastic example. He worked on Darius. Darius loved him. Darius promoted him. My thing about Daniel chapter 6 is Darius was willing to make him king. You know what I mean? To share the throne with him, similar to Joseph and Pharaoh before the famine came. And when it came to worship, Daniel told Darius and the whole group of 120 princes, thus far no further. I worship in honor of God. I worship in Jehovah. All right, that's my choice. Don't interfere with my freedom of choice.
Right.
And to my mind, constructive engagement says, you have your work to do, I have my work to do. You have your role to play, I have a role.
Right.
Anytime you cross that line, we're going to have some challenges. And you must expect that both religion will try to cross the line of a state operation, and the state will sometimes, because we are all carnal, soul under sin, trying to improve by the grace of God. And when that happens, it's the maturity that must be used to relate to it and to respond and to manage it.
Now, I want to just bring this point as in the last few minutes of our conversation. And you get a lot of meat off of social media.
Yes.
Right? And in terms of getting a lot of meat over social media, you have to know what to eat and what to throw away.
Yes.
Right? And I'm looking at the response from people across the board, whatever religion, but you realize that there is this crying out to God only when something happens. And I'm, as a believer, make reference to Christ, and that's what we sometimes do. When we're feeling the chill of crime or the chill of life, we just throw on the jacket, throw on Jesus, and then we throw it back off and put it back in our closet. But the thing is, we are living in a very cold world 24 hours a day. How do we get people to understand when it comes to your walk, no matter what religion you may be? I'm just saying, when it comes to life, how important it is to understand staying connected to your source and staying connected to God, staying connected to your faith. Because people, again, we get so caught up in the material stuff of life, yes, that we're not understanding that the very fabric of any society, any foundation of any society, if you look at it, it is based on God. How do we get back to that? Because everything we're saying here, it goes right back to that.
It has to be, we have to have consistency. What I have found in Trinidad, to be very specific, when your party is in power, what we have is, when your party is in power, what we have is that it is prophecy.
Right.
And when your party is not in power, all right, is it incompetence and corruption? So that the church has to relate to that in a very honest fashion. What people are demanding of the church is that the church should be honest and consistent. As we are honest and consistent, we'll produce the desired change. We have to be honest and consistent, and don't use religion as a flaw, rather as a convenience jacket. When we're in a crisis, we tell everybody go back to God. We should be letting people return to God all the time.
Because if you wear the jacket all the time, then therefore he'll always keep you warm.
That's right.
And always keep you in his love.
And the modeling will be consistent.
What advice do you have as you have for just general advice do you have now for our leaders? I mean, we touched on several areas that they should, but generally, what advice do you have for all our leaders, and this being religious and political leaders?
I want to tell our leaders,
everyone.
Yeah, sure. I want to tell leaders, business, political, religious, and all over. I want to advise all of us to practice, to my mind, what is the most important philosophical pillar in the whole of the universe, and that is unconditional love. And we in religion, you know, as religious leaders, we have to set the best possible example of reaching out to others. I must help you not because you want to, I want you to join my religion. I must help you because God has given me a mandate to help everyone, whether they join my church or not, whether they look like me or not, whether they like me or not. Our philosophy, our attitude to people must be based on unconditional love.
And also advice now to those hard-pressed communities, those homes, those families where you have, whether it be absentee fathers, whether it be poverty, people who have lost hope. As you rightly said, it doesn't matter what you say now, it doesn't resonate because of their personal pain. That's what I made the point about sometimes just as a leader, you sit down amongst the people and forget the bashing of the other party, but what are you going through? What would you say to them to give them some sort of hope? Because right now people have lost all faith.
I want to say to those in troubled communities, those who have lost hope, do not lose hope. Do not give up. You know, sometimes we lose hope just at a time when the tide is about to turn. And I want to tell Trinidad and Tobago and those who are hurting, contact us. You know, contact a religious leader. There are people who care about you, who might even know that you are around and the needs that you have. So pray to God, exercise faith in God, because in the end, it's our faith in God that carries us through. And never lose sight of your dreams. The good book in Jeremiah 1 says, before you were born, before your mother met your father, God had a special plan for your life. He ordained you to be a prophet, ordained you to be somebody extraordinary. So hope is to the soul what oxygen is to the body. So let's keep giving our hearts to God. Let's keep practicing unconditional love. Let's tell our children that help is around the corner. And let's try to make a difference in this society.
On that note,
God bless.
Very fitting end.
God bless you.
As always, Master Clive Dottin. Sheldon here with this has been another episode of Cloud9 on ACT and The Voice. Take care and God bless you.